Monkey here. Today I want to show off the Mantis Blackbeard X system. Now I'm a little late to the party, but I thought worth showing how I ended up using it because it's a little bit different than the other videos out there. And I would say as a summary, I think it's good for dry fire, for going from lower, high ready to get your first clean hit with the potential for follow-up hits of any sort. And I ended up using it for large target transitions, something I wanted to work on. And that said, it isn't necessarily great for that out of the box, so I incorporated, I think, the steel, or the laser light SteelTyme target, hilariously spelled. And so it's a laser reactive target that adds to what I was looking for, of easy to set up and cost efficient. So on the subject of how I got there to why I liked that setup, let's go over the pros and cons of the Blackbeard system. So as a starting point, it is semi-auto, and so that's good, where you don't want to have to charge it after every shot. That's garbage. You don't want none of that. That's like guaranteed training scar. No thank you. Nice that that's not a problem. Another pro is that for the most part you get to use your weapon as is. So you're just changing the bolt carrier group and the magazine. Everything else stays the same. Like, get your light on there, your optic, safety trigger especially is nice. Don't have to mess with any of that. So that's pretty rad. A con, however, as you probably already saw, is that there's no recoil. So that's usually a different cost and complication, where you're like, say, have gas system or weight moving in the back somehow. Sad it's not there, but it's just not what they're offering. But it does bring up, say, like I've seen them do their presentations at the Mantis booth, where they're just like burning it down in a little tiny area. And you look at that and you're like, I don't know if that's quite so representative of a recoiled weapon. So it brings up consideration that dry fire can be certainly helpful and efficient, and cost effective and all that, but you do have to eventually follow it up with some sort of live fire, or you will run into an issue like that where that's just not a real life expectation. I suppose another con is the magazine is both the sensor and the powers, so it's not so great for any sort of reload drills. It's possible, like it comes out same shape as the magazine and all that. It is kind of a weird, like middle bullets filled weight. It's going to be more delicate. Like, it's not something you want to drop on gravel. Like, if you're going to bother trying all, you want to like lay down some pads and stuff. It's expensive to get more of these. And finally, which I don't like, sometimes it's a little quirky on how you enter it. Let's see. So it did okay that time. Sometimes put it in and it's just something's off and you got to take it out, put it back in to get your trigger back and going. That's a little quirky. Similar note, you're not going to be doing any sort of weapon malfunction drills. Charging handle doesn't do anything. That's just not happening. That said, it's a very safe setup on a similar setup. So there's no way to have bullets in there. Trigger's not going to be able to hit there. All the red showing, so it's very easy to see that it's a safe training situation once you get the parts in. I'll say a positive is that if you're familiar with the Mantis system, the core app, that's pretty cool. It keeps track of all this fancy movement and times and very cool of what all I can keep track of, and even over long term and all that. Whether usually most people are going to be using a phone or a tablet to communicate over Bluetooth. Get into more of that later. But side issue, however, is that core system is virtual targets. So there's pros and cons of that, where it's very easy to set up because it can be technically anything. You could be shooting plushies, whatever. But the problem is it's not keeping track. So you could be like, just shooting another and be like, oh, great scores, guy. And so I could kind of lend towards trying to keep an eye on the target, make sure that the laser hits, which is what I'm not interested in. So that brings up that you can get the Laser Academy system, also made by Mantis, which does keep track of actual hits because it's using, say, like a camera, which is usually your phone or similar, but you got to have a very specific, like, this is my setup to blast this target. So usually it's difficult to get any sort of like really distant targets, or say like different size targets is possible, but you're stuck in that camera view frames a little more limited. That said, still cool, and it is keeping track, like you can have targets that are scored like a bullseye. Pretty cool once you have the setup. Just the setup itself isn't quite so convenient compared to just setting up whatever you want. On a similar subject, when you get a Blackbeard, you get to pick red, green, or IR laser. I originally liked the idea of IR because I didn't want to be looking at lasers for training scars. That problem with that though is setup's not so fun for that. Like, you gotta have on night vision just to like get it dialed in, and it doesn't react to very many targets. Like the ones available are pretty pricey. Say some people may have different goals where they want to see the laser. So a common one is to, like, say you have a red dot, they get the green laser to see the contrast on purpose. In the end, I found the red dot was good enough for me, or a red laser rather, where especially if it lines up with the red dot, it just kind of hides itself. It's not something I'm worried about or looking, or there's enough offset anyway where it's like totally off, and that's fine too. So it all worked out with just a basic red laser, and also that's going to work with way more laser reactive targets. So I appreciated that. And so anyway, that's just kind of like a starting point if that sounds interesting to you on capabilities. I'm about to get into the fancy details from here. So when I first got the Mantis system, I was curious about how fast one can be with the trigger. They claim about 10 a second, which so far has been beyond my capabilities, but show a quick example of that. Try some 6-shot strings here. Oh, 7. Try again.
Shooter ready.
Oh, 6. There we go. Hey, kind of average, like 0.16-ish. So probably do a little bit better than that, but just as an example that it can keep up with whatever I'm giving it. And just out of curiosity, it works like a normal trigger where you can hold it and it's ready to go. So it doesn't matter if you hold down or not. Like I was saying, installation of the Blackbeard is easy. I'd show you exactly, but I'm just not in the mood to have a random Google outsourced employee from India flagging my video because they don't know how anything works. But anyway, staying on track. So you just break the gun down to take out the bolt carrier group and charging handle. Take that out. Put in this red unit here. Boom, and then you put in the magazine, and that's it. And good to go. Also, while on this note, I was curious if the Law Tactical folder would work, and works out fine. You take the plug out and still everything stays in place where it should be. Worked out fine. Showing what comes with the Blackbeard. So you get this cool guy case. Inside, your getting started instructions. You get this USB wire, I believe is micro USB. Not quite as handy as USB-C these days, but gets the job done. A little short, being a 1-footer. You get a sticker and then hex key. Getting into the fun stuff, so this is the main bolt carrier group laser. You can see here, so use the hex key. This is a windage zone and an elevation zone. And it's a little confusing because they look like different sizes, but use the same hex key. And there's no clicks or anything, so you just turn them where you need them to be. Also notable is this switch, which can be easier with this little hex key. You turn it to constant on, and so then you do your adjustments and then switch back off into normal mode. So this perhaps is a good opportunity to show how the trigger reset works. So essentially when the trigger drops, it doesn't have to go far before it senses it, and then has this little pusher, pushes it right back. I'm going to attempt to show you that. Let's see here. So you can see that just pushes that very rapidly, and that's all it takes. This is the magazine side, where some notable areas are. This is the Bluetooth button, looks like that. Hold it down to stop. Other side, you have your USB port, and then a button here, which gives power over here. Some notable considerations where I wasn't able to get it to charge through my PC, so you need to charge it through the wall. And it takes a long time, like 6 to 8 hours plus to get like a full charge when it's dead. That said, it does last a long time when you do fully charge it. And another quirk is it will discharge itself if left in the gun, even though there's not a bunch of lasers shooting or anything like that. Well, here might as well go over the SteelTyme details so you can see it's comically trapped in the 90s for the aesthetic. Simple main button here, or switch rather, so you got your middle for noise. Doesn't take much for the light contrast to go off. And then if that's driving everybody nuts around you, you have silent mode, so you'll still get the flash without the ding. And then on the back, so you got your 3 AAA batteries. Pretty direct. And then down here you have a hanger hole, so between just letting it stand like that or hang it, plenty simple and effective options for what it's trying to be. As a heads up, when you get to barrel alignment, there's pretty much always going to be an offset. So it doesn't matter if you have a common optic height or say it's even worse with the high optics. The main issue is the laser is in the barrel, so they only have so much angle room to work with, and it gets exasperated the longer the barrel is. So usually you start off with getting left to right windage aligned to your red dot or whatever optic you got going on, and then you try your best to get as close in height before either the laser will disappear or start to do wacky reflections in the barrel. So just a heads up on that. Showing how to connect your Blackbeard to the Mantis app. So once you get your stuff installed, next step, you want to turn on your mag Bluetooth button and then set it somewhere stable, because it will do a calibration usually when you connect on the app. Show an example here. All right, and once in, it's also worth noting, checking out the settings. So you got, it's cool that it automatically sees the Blackbeard, even though I also have the Mantis Elite from a pistol. And I recommend checking out the advanced settings real quick, noting you got like buzzer delay type stuff and theme. So you got like light, if you have a different lighting situation. Well, I like the default for what I'm currently doing. And then another cool thing to check out in the normal settings is the audio feedback. And I believe that the default is off. When you have the audio options are for the chime and the shot, which is basically metal target hit sound, and shots just sounds like a gunfire. Either one can have a target score on when you want to hear them. Makes more sense for a chime to be hit, and shot is just kind of for fun. And then you also have speech, which can be just gives a score and a direction. I'll give some examples of both these, make a little more sense. And while we're here, the announce ready, I turn that on, so it says shooter ready. It's more fun than nothing. And can't is a little bit more specific. It's a small detail where the audio is weird, but the visual makes sense if that's what you're looking into. So some quick things to check out before you get the party started. All right, going over some audio options here. So here's that chime. Shot noise. And then speech with score.
90, 91, 93, 92, 75,
See,
78.
it can be a little wacky if you shoot too fast, so it's a little more specific. And then direction is more about how you're screwing up. So it's a little bit different, can also be at the same time as score.
Left, low, great, great, low right.
So it doesn't have any information about the target, so it's more where you're drifting a little bit towards on your trigger press. Now there's a lot of options, but I think it's best to start with open training, where it's doing scoring on a good trigger press. So it's kind of more classical for this particular system. Let's check this out, an example. Do a purposeful bad one. And let's check out some data here. So the actual usual starter tab is this one here. And so you can see, so you've got your score and your time. This is just open training, so no other parameters. You see icons let you know kind of your highs and lows. And then the next page, more about where you screwed up. The 0-0 is the last shot because I purposely botched it. And then let's see here. The next is kind of a graph showing trigger press movement and hold movement, like balancing out the shots taken so far. And then the next one is pretty good if you're getting really in there to see the yellow. The blue is the core movement until you do the press, and then the yellow is just a little bit right before the trigger press. And you can go through each one, check out, and you can even press play on each one, and it'll do a little animation on how you did. So that can be helpful. And then the last one's actually just real time, where it's more for instructor stuff. Not particularly helpful right this second, but it can be when you're looking at seeing just like how someone wiggles just by default, or doing other activities before you even do a recorded drill. Due to the way the Mantis measures what's going on, whether it be just general movement and how I can use that data, there's a big divide between the dynamic drills and the just basic drills. So dynamics mostly looking at your efficiency of movement and speed, while the core drills are looking for just really honing in a good trigger press and time. So we'll do the core dynamic training. I believe I got these on little twosie shots, or three shots, and then as a reminder on each one you can check out the drill settings. So you got like buzzer delay, shot count, repeats, and you got your ready position. So you can just show an example here. So you got like whether or not it beeps, whether or not you're on target, low ready, high ready. I guess it doesn't say high port, but you can do that as you wish. So a lot of cool options, par time, so it's like automatic par timer as well. Anyway, let's show an example of the dynamic information.
Shooter ready.
Just get some quick data here. Alright, so at least we got a little something to look at. And so this gets a little confusing because you have your upper icon tabs and you have another row of text tabs. So again, let's see, your upper tabs, you got your general graph of core score and time. Next, you got your charts again, which is very helpful for the dynamic stuff, because you don't want to do big oversways. That's what you're trying to avoid. Trying to get where you go right on target, and then bablamo. What you're trying to do, and then you've got a main breakdown of delay, and it goes by a different score because it's not going by the number score of like how great your trigger press was. So now it's going by efficiency type score, and you can see here on break it down by transition and over travel. So like you definitely don't get 100 if you go way over and then back to the target. That's what you're trying to avoid. And then again your times, and then it'll also go by delay. So you can see a different way of scoring, because it's a fundamental issue. If you're trying to go really fast to the target, and you might even like shoot and move on to the next one, that's always going to be a crappy trigger score. So it needs to score differently. So without getting too far into the weeds, go over some of the drills offered. Like I was saying, there's a whole dynamic drill section, and then ready up is pretty explanatory, and then transitions, however, it's got this big old section, all the greatest hits rather, but the problem is they're virtual targets. So for me, the problem I don't like is then I have to like really like keep an eye on whether or not I'm hitting the target, which can be borderline if you're going real fast and smaller targets. And so that's a little bit of a downside for the end result of a virtual target, but within its system, it's offering a lot. Then moving on, you got like your daily challenge, which is like your fun. It's a new challenge each day. usually wacky on purpose, and you can share it with your friends, keep you coming back. Then you got your core drills. Like I was saying, the main division is that it's more how great your trigger press is, or everything's nice and stable and clean, and then your time between those. So there's all these different versions of that. Open training shot timer, as in like how quickly between shots, par timer. Most of these drills you can add a par on top of that. That's just like an easy version. So all different kinds. Some are a little confusingly named, like secondary, primaries, just strong side and it's weak side. You got like kneeling. That's more just for, I mean, you could kneel at any of these. That's just an easy way to document a section. Reload drills, again, it's not the most fun on the Blackbeard system, but it's there. And notable, I like to bring up hostage rescue drill. I get a little frustrated because, again, you're going really quick to the target, and then you'll see like, oh, I totally blasted that bad guy and saved the hostage. It'll give you like a real crap score unless it's like just really slow, controlled trigger press. So that one, especially at the advanced settings, doesn't give you much time. That one frustrates me. But at the same time, it can also train to like get up, you know, whether it be going from low ready, holster, whatever, goes to there as fast as possible on target, and then doing a nice slow controlled trigger press. So then the courses make up these drills, so that can be kind of fun and interesting. Say like basic rifleman here shows a package. I'll restart, and it shows it up top. But this is also a downside, is you don't know what you're getting into. So that you've got like this like 10 parts to it to complete the rifleman package. So you just got to do it. And it's jumping on into the unknown. It'd be nicer if they just set them online or somewhere. Not that in the world, just noting that, but it's pretty cool. So you can go from basic, advanced to elite, and they get a little harder as they go to give you an improvement. So it's definitely the point of the system. And for a small add-on, if you go to settings, you can turn on some military-specific drills. They're usually not quite applicable because they're so specific, but hey, they're free drills. So, you know, it doesn't hurt anybody. So as you can see, there's a little something for everybody. My only complaint is they're virtual targets, but it's offering quite a lot within that core capability. Getting into more Blackbeard options, I wanted to show off the Laser Academy system. So also made by Mantis, but a totally different app. Now it's trying to keep track of targets actually being hit, in this case using the camera on my phone, but you can use other cameras like tablets and whatnot. But it's not keeping track of motion like the other Mantis app is. And technically you can run both at the same time. It gets a little complicated, like you got to do a split screen on your phone. Not everybody's going to do that, but it is possible. But anyway, keeping track on the Laser Academy. Other worthwhile notes, sorry, the lighting's not so great, but you actually need good contrast between the targets and the laser, because you don't want it to be full bright. It would be difficult for the sensors to see. And also for the targets, you can just print those out. Like they'll sell them to you as nice cardstock and whatever, but you can just download these as PDFs off the website and good to go. And getting more into that. So the freebie version is anybody can download it, but it's only single target, sadly. But if you do buy the full version, you can get all these fancy multiple targets, even making custom target shapes and stuff like that. But one thing I wanted to show when setting up, you can calibrate where I'm pretty darn close here. And if I don't want to do a big target offsets, let's do a little calibration offset. So I get the big dot here. We'll kind of aim for our bullseye center. Let's see what we got here. Get a couple good hits. And apply that, see where that took us. Get confirmation. Alright, so good confirmation. And as a plus, you can have a UI target, so it's something you could shoot at, but technically not a target. So I can at least have my bullseye, which also they got a whole bunch of different targets you can use, but this is a good example to start with to show you capabilities. So let's shoot the start thing. See, it starts, nice. And we're just in open training, so no big time constraints. And screwed up on purpose.
4, 2, 1, 9, 10.
And then when done, you can shoot stop. And as expected, you got all these kind of stats again, not movement per se, but you get your quality of shots and times and everything you would expect out of this system. So overall, cool to have more options, but it's more of a setup. Like I got either there's a lot of setup involved, you got to have space specified for it. So, and then also the camera can only see so much at once. So like kind of the best you're going to do is one of these. Like you're not going to be able to do a 180 because like if you go back too far, then the camera can't see the detail of the targets. But anyway, it's definitely worth showing. Some people really dig this setup, and we'll show you even more from here. So we're saving the best for last. We got the SteelTyme spelled funny, and so these are super fun because you can put them pretty much anywhere. Have someone else put them up to surprise you where they're going to be, different distances. You can put them on the ceiling, just extremely versatile, and then you just turn them on. They're ready to go. And so I'll have a zoom in here, just a quick example of when you blast it. So just very reactive. You don't have to, because it's red on red, I'm also not too worried about seeing if I hit. And so moving on, I'll go in the middle here, show an example of large target transitions. So like we can go from here a little bit further away, and then all the way over here, maybe back here, and then over here. And so even you practice your 180s, boom, and also a good example where, say, if you're close, your offset on your optics is going to be more real world. So that's nice practice where far away shot gets closer to my normal zero, and then I have to purposefully offset for these big close bullets. So anyway, hopefully that shows off some pretty cool options. While we're here, this is a good example of showing walking while shooting at these target size. They're pretty small, so check this out. So this is good practice here of how fast you can get away with and still be accurate. And of course it gets easier as you get closer you get because the target gets bigger. So if it wasn't apparent, although these are fun just by being as reactive as they are, you can combine it with the Mantis Blackbeard. So then you're getting your target confirmations, but then also your time splits and other just record keeping. So they make a great combo. So that's one reason why I call it save best for last, where you get all the nerdy stuff from the Mantis side app, but then you get the real-time reaction stuff of the SteelTyme. So I think they make a great combo. Now it's not Blackbeard specific, but thought I'd go over some exercises I've been doing that at least helped me out some for gun handling. So I got my long boy here. Sometimes I'll even have the suppressor. You can go wild, start adding purposeful weight at the end. But the main thing is you're just working out those arms for being on target. So you can start with the basics of just holding it on target. Just holding it there, seeing how long until you get shaky. And then, switch to the other arm. You can do this while watching TV, but the main thing is, just actually be looking at the target, make sure you're not doing a dirty rep. And then it helps going from low ready and high ready, depending on what you want to work on at the time. Just really emphasize trying to activate the whole shoulder zone. So like say going from here, and then you're getting good reps on buttstock placement and being on sight for your final rep of where you want to end up. And so you can do like 20 on those on each side, switch, and repeat until you start to get fatigued. And then of course your numbers will change from there. Nothing too special, but just thought I'd share something I've been up to. So hopefully you found this video helpful to show what the Blackbeard is good at and not so good at. Say overall for the price point, pretty good capabilities. Doesn't do absolutely everything, but it also is the point of the video to show if Mantis specifically doesn't do everything you want. Sometimes you can add on other products to get a little closer to what you want because it's a solid foundation of offerings. As a side note, so the AR-15 is always going to be most popular, and where they started, they're starting to offer Blackbeard in, I believe, AR-10, MCX, and starting to do more scars and even looking into the AK. So that's pretty cool, something to keep an eye out, offerings for more people. Thanks again for watching. If you liked this video and want to support us, check out the MIL-SPEC Monkey Store. Although known for morale patches, we also specialize in a good selection of DIY hardware and tactical accessories.